Hey guys, I'm Coach Jay. I'm a mental performance coach living down here in Ponte Vedra, Florida. And today I want to talk about, has the Indiana football program, have they forever changed college recruiting? And I believe that, with this recent win, national championship game, um, it's going to force college coaches to look at recruiting high school kids a lot differently. And unfortunately, I don't think that's good for the system. Um, what we know about the Indiana program was majority of the kids on the team were transfer portal kids. A lot of them came over from James Madison, but the rest of them were transfer portal kids. The quarterback for Indiana, he had actually been offered a walk-on spot at Miami, his hometown, his favorite team, but he didn't want to be a walk-on quarterback. And kudos to him. I don't blame him. Walk-ons don't play typically. So I think that I think that this was already in play a lot. I know when I went over to the University of North Florida and I went to a camp with like 200 baseball kids. Somebody asked the question, how many of these kids are you looking at? And he basically said something to the effect of, "We're going to take one high school kid in this class." And it was implied that the majority of players were going to be transfer portal kids. And I saw that over a year ago. So he it's hard to watch because everybody out there had paid 200 and something dollars to compete. They're all going through all the drills, they're doing all the stuff. These are all good, very good players at their high school, but out of that whole group of 200 kids, he's probably going to take one. And he probably had a decent idea who that one was going to be. And so I do believe, and I've talked to some football scouts, some guys that work with high school kids that are trying to get recruited, and they're panicking right now because there are so many kids in the portal for 2026 that right now they don't really have to go to the high school and go to the second level. They're really just going in the transfer portal, and they're trying to see if they can talk some of these kids that played D1 this past year, and see if they can talk them into D2. As a general rule, that's going to be a big step down. It's going to be a monster step down for most of those guys, especially if you played at a Power Four school. Um, most of those Power Four kids could go to the Group 5. But I still think when it's all said and done, there's going to be a lot of kids that just get left out. They're going to die in the transfer portal. They'll never play again. They may have gotten too greedy with what they were asking, and some of those kids will never play football again. And so, if you ask me, this system is broken. The NCAA has found a way to break a sport that we all love. They've broken college sports, especially college football. I think basketball as well. I mean, they broke the system, and players have too much. They have too much independence. They have too much ability to leverage a lot of stuff. And the things that happened at Clemson this year with the guy that signed an agreement, then jumped in the transfer portal at the very last minute. Even though I don't really like Clemson, um, it's horrible, and it's wrong, and it's broken. And the only way this thing gets fixed is lawsuits, and they're coming. They're coming because people are fed up enough, and I think there's enough lawyers out there that know they can make a big chunk of change going after some of this stuff. And so, I think the NCAA is a sitting duck right now. They A lot of things are going on right now, and they look inept. They look like they don't know what they're doing. They went from total lockdown to just total freedom, and I use freedom very loosely. I don't mean it in the general sense. I mean it basically like the Wild Wild West, where people can just do what they want. And I really don't like it. I think that I felt like that players should get paid. I'm definitely about that. I want them to get the support that they need. But right now, with a lot of the things that are going on, it's inappropriate, and it's ruining a sport that most of us just dearly love. And so, all that being said, is the information that I'm getting from this past week is that most of these high school high school programs that I'm connected to down in Jacksonville, they're not getting a lot of visits. They're not hearing from high school. They're not hearing from the college coaches as much for this next level of players, and that means one thing: these guys are going after. They're going after the guys that are in the portal, and they're gonna try to get those guys in first. Because here's what we saw: Indiana did not have as much talent, but they did have older players. They had more experienced players than Miami. They basically played very disciplined. They played non-emotional. They played it like it was a job, like a grown man would. And meanwhile, Miami's missing freaking, they're missing kicks, they're missing field goals, they're missing freaking blocks, missed tackles. When they have all 4 and 5 star guys with the best of coaches, highly paid, uh, unbelievable resources. And so when you look at the Indiana program and you compare it to Miami, it's no comparison. And so by all accounts, Miami should have won that game, but they didn't. And what we saw was this Indiana program. They were disciplined. They guys did their job. They got turnovers at the right times. They dominated teams, beating Ohio State, beating Oregon, Alabama. They whipped Alabama. Just amazing discipline, amazing ability to catch balls on big plays. The quarterback Mendoza, he played like a total champ. So I'm not taking anything away from them as far as talent, because obviously at the end of the day, the team that has the most points, they're the better team. So Indiana definitely beat Miami. As much as I wanted Miami to win, as much as I work with people down there, I can't change history. And at this point, Miami took it to them. I mean, Indiana took it to them. And so, hats off to them. They played a better game, and that's the way it goes. But what I'm telling you is that unless the NCAA starts making some changes, unless these conferences start making some changes, they're going to really ruin it for most high school kids. And I have seen over the last 3 years, 4 years, every single year, less and less coaches are going to the high schools looking for players. And so, I think some kids that would have gone 3, 4 years ago, they're not getting any calls at all. They're not getting any calls at all from anybody, and it's hard to see because these are very good players, and so now they're having to compete against guys who have already been out there playing 3 years. And honestly, if I'm a head coach, I'm going to take the guy that's got experience. I'm going to take the older guy who's already been through the system. 50% failure rate for high school kids in their freshman year. So the guys that have already been out there 2 or 3 years, they got the experience. They just, they know what's expected. They know the grind. They know the workload. And so I think it's going to be very difficult for the class of 2026 for this next group of guys. And I work with a couple of guys, and they're just not getting calls. And these are very good players, guys that went to the playoffs and everything else. So all that being said, I work as a mental performance coach. I live down here in Ponte Vedra, Florida. Every single day, I'm on FaceTime, go-to meeting, or regular phone calls with high school athletes, college athletes, teenagers, helping them to prepare better for games, helping them to have a better mindset, understanding all the dynamics, looking at it from, not looking at it from a teenager's perspective, but looking at it from a science and math perspective about what has worked. And everything that I teach is science and math. It's on some level, but it works. And it's not the way that a normal teenager would think. This is something they have to learn. But you can only go so high if you're not developing your mental part of your game. And so that is a big piece about what I do. And so all that being said, you can find me on X at College Scout FB. You can also find me on Psychology Today, listed as Coach J. I'm also on, I also have a website, sportsintervention.com, if you want to check it out. But I work with kids every single day, and I say kids or young adults, work on them every single day, helping them get better in their sport. And so, this time period goes very quickly, and there's no do-overs. Once you turn 18, 19, for most kids, their sports days are over. So you want to get it developed, you want to get it doing it right, especially if your kid has a lot of potential. You want to get it right early so that they can play better. So all that being said, God bless. See you on the ball field.